It's time for the last goodbye. They embraced once more, a hug laden with all the pain and love they felt. With heavy steps, Grant approached the coffin, looking at Marlene for the final time. "My dear Marlene," he began, his voice shaking with emotion. "From the day we met, I knew you were the one for me. Our journey wasn't easy, but every moment by your side was worth it. Together, we faced so many hardships, I working tirelessly as a brick." At the shelter, Ophelia continued her tireless work, helping countless others like Sawyer find a fresh start. Her dedication sparked a wave of volunteerism in the community, expanding the shelter's reach and impact. Meanwhile, Lysander, removed from the supermarket's management, faced a period of deep reflection. Losing his position, driven by his own mother's disapproval, shook him to his core. Though the journey toward recognizing his mistakes was painful, he struggled to find the humility needed to apologize and return to where he came from. A year later, Eudora's supermarket wasn't just a successful business. It was a symbol of how compassion, respect, and individual determination could transform lives and communities. Sawyer and his children represented a story of resilience and second chances, inspiring everyone who knew them. As each character forged ahead, one truth remained clear. Understanding and action could create waves of change, weaving a web of support and community where I know, Dad, but how do we move forward without her? She was everything. The question lingered unanswered between them, carried off by the wind that swept through the cemetery. They walked back to the car in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, the ache of loss sitting heavily in their chests. As they drove home, the streets of Philadelphia blurred past the windows, grey and lifeless under the overcast sky. Weeks passed, and the initial shock began to settle into a dull, persistent sorrow. Grant threw himself into work, laying bricks with a fervour that left his hands raw and blistered. Each swing of the trowel felt like a small act of defiance against the despair threatening to consume him. He couldn't let go, not when Sterling needed him more than ever. For Sterling, coping was harder. At just 16, he found himself navigating a world that suddenly seemed far too big and lonely. School became a blur of faces and voices he barely registered, while nights were spent lying awake. "You'd be proud of him," he whispered. "Of all of us." Years went by, and Marlene's market grew into an annual tradition, drawing crowds from across the city. What started as a tribute to one woman's life blossomed into a celebration of resilience and community. Sterling graduated high school, earned a scholarship to college, and eventually returned to Philadelphia to expand the initiative, turning it into a non-profit organization that supported struggling families. Grant, meanwhile, continued working as a bricklayer, but he also became a mentor to young men in the neighborhood, teaching them skills and instilling values he and Marlene had cherished. Together, father and son built not just walls and markets, but bridges of connection and healing within their community. Though Marlene was no longer physically present, her influence lived on, in the laughter of children at the market, in the strength of families pulling together. They kept smoothly, quickly and promptly by adding some prompt deliveries. They cared to help their community. You will find they were never wanting this help. The air was heavy with emotion, broken only by the soft sound of crying and the whispering wind that seemed to carry Grant's words beyond those gathered. The mourners stood in quiet reverence, sharing memories of Marlene, her warm smile, her boundless kindness, and the way she made each person feel uniquely special. It was clear that Marlene had left an indelible mark on their lives. Sterling, standing beside his father, stared at the coffin with a lost expression. His mind swirled as Grant's eulogy echoed like a distant reverberation, mingling with his own thoughts. What will life be like without her? He silently wondered. Mum, your absence feels like a void that nothing can fill, he thought, his heart aching. But your love, your strength, it will remain with us. You'll always be part of who we are. He briefly closed his eyes, conjuring her radiant smile, the one that could light up even the darkest days. We'll remember you with every step we take, with every decision we make. I want you to continue your studies. I don't want you to endure the same hard life I've lived. But Dad, Sterling argued, torn between responsibility and his father's wishes, we need the money now more than ever. Grant turned to look deeply into his son's eyes. If I have to work 14 hours a day, I'll do it. Your mother always dreamed of seeing you become a great man, a respected professional. She wanted you to be an engineer. Sterling, I'll do everything in my power to keep that dream alive. You need to focus on your studies. That's what she wanted, and it's what I want for you too. Sterling looked toward the horizon, absorbing his father's words. He knew the road ahead would be tough without his mother by his side, but her legacy burned brightly within him. Months had passed since Marlene's passing, and though sadness still lingered deep in their hearts, life continued. Daily routines were maintained with silent effort, an attempt to find some semblance of normalcy amidst the void. Felt warmth in his heart, knowing that Grant's words were more than mere encouragement. They were a commitment, a promise of unwavering support. Thank you, Dad. I promise I will dedicate myself fully. I'll be a civil engineer that Mum would have been proud of, that you will be proud of. I'm doing this for us, for our family. Grant, looking at his son with tear-filled eyes, smiled with immense love and tenderness. Your mother always believed in you, Sterling. She knew you were capable of great things. And now, even though she isn't here with us, I know she's watching over us, proud of you. As they prepared dinner, they talked about the future, about the possibilities and dreams that could still be realized. It was a moment of light amid the darkness of morning. Sometime later, Sterling came home after another day at university, his expression laden with frustration and discomfort. Grant, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen, immediately noticed the change in his son's mood. "What happened, Sterling?" he asked, concern. Grant felt a wave of relief at the prospect of extra work, but it was tinged with worry, both for Sterling's situation and his own limitations. He knew the coming months would be grueling, yet he was resolute. Whatever it took, he would ensure his son's well-being. After months of relentless labor and meticulous saving, Grant finally managed to scrape together enough money to buy the motorcycle Sterling had been dreaming of. Arriving home with the motorcycle in tow, Grant couldn't wait to see his son's reaction. The thought of bringing even a sliver of joy to Sterling buoyed him. "Sterling," he called out, his voice brimming with pride as he gestured toward the gleaming bike parked before them. "Come see what I've brought for you." Sterling emerged from the house, surprise flickering across his face as he took in the sight of the motorcycle. Grant's eyes sparkled with anticipation as he said, "I bought it with all my love, son. Now you can take your girlfriend for a ride. I hope you like." Today's youth live in a different world, Grant. They're drawn to the glitz and glamour. It's hard not to get seduced by all that, especially when they're surrounded by people who seem to have everything. But what bothers me the most, Grant continued, frustration creeping into his tone, is that he barely talks to me anymore. Before, he shared everything, his dreams, his worries. Now, he goes out, comes back late, and we barely see each other. I feel like I'm losing my son to a world I don't understand. Warren nodded, understanding the weight of Grant's dilemma. It's tough, my friend. But remember, you've sacrificed a lot to give him everything, to make him feel included, including that motorcycle. I say this with affection, but you can't be too lenient either. Grant looked down, lost in thought. I know, Warren. Buying the motorcycle wasn't a mistake. I did it thinking of his well-being. Maybe I just need to find a way to reconnect with him, to understand this new world he's stepping. Marlene, he whispered, his voice breaking. I would give anything to have you here right now. I need you. We need you. That night, the house was cloaked in tension and sorrow. Grant sat motionless in the living room when the sound of the door opening jolted him from his thoughts. It was Sterling, clearly intoxicated. His staggered gait and distant expression were unmistakable. For Grant, this was the final straw. He rose. The anguish and frustration of the day spilling into every word. Sterling, we need to talk, Grant began, his voice trembling with emotion. What you did today, pretending I was just an employee. I never imagined my own son, my protege, could do something like this. Your mother and I worked tirelessly to give you the best, and this is how you repay us, by being ungrateful. Don't you see the effort I make every day to give you a worthy future? Sterling, still under the influence of alcohol, looked at his father with a mixture of disdain and irritation. I don't have... Marlene, he whispered, his voice breaking. I would give anything to have you here right now. I need you. We need you. That night, the house was cloaked in tension and sorrow. Grant sat motionless in the living room when the sound of the door opening jolted him from his thoughts. It was Sterling, clearly intoxicated. His staggered gait and distant expression were unmistakable. For Grant, this was the final straw. He rose, the anguish and frustration of the day spilling into every word. Sterling, we need to talk, Grant began, his voice trembling with emotion. What you did today, pretending I was just an employee, I never imagined my own son, my protege, could do something like this. Your mother and I worked tirelessly to give you the best, and this is how you repay us? By being ungrateful? Don't you see the effort I make every day to give you a worthy future? Sterling, still under the influence of alcohol, looked at his father with a mixture of disdain and irritation. I don't have. Do you? You never understood, Sterling said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, but still heavy with emotion. His jaw was tight, his stance defiant as he stood before his father. I'm trying to be more, to stand taller. And if that means pretending you're not my father, so be it. I have to do what's necessary. Grant stood frozen at the doorway, his heart breaking as he looked at his son. Desperation filled his eyes. Sterling, please think about what you're doing. You're drunk. You're in no condition to ride. Everything else can wait, but your safety comes first. Please. But Sterling had already made up his mind. With an air of finality, he opened the door and shot back over his shoulder. I know how to take care of myself. Don't worry about me. I'll manage on my own. Before Grant could say another word, Sterling stepped outside, slamming the door behind him. Moments later, the roar of a motorcycle engine shattered the night silence. Croivy is calm and composed. Please, please. But Sterling had already made up his mind. With an air of finality, he opened as the sound faded into the distance. Grant. We had to take him to surgery immediately. The next 24 hours will be critical for his recovery. Overwhelmed by fear and guilt, tears streamed down Grant's face. Please, doctor, do everything you can. He's all I have. It's my fault. We fought and he left because of me. Dr. Lennox offered a reassuring nod, her professionalism softened by empathy. I understand this is an incredibly difficult time, but now we need to focus on Sterling's recovery. We'll do everything within our power. For now, I suggest you wait in the waiting room. If anything changes, we'll notify you. Alone in the cold sterility of the hospital waiting room, Grant folded his trembling hands in prayer. Eyes closed, tears streaming freely, he whispered fervently to the heavens. My God, in this moment of anguish and uncertainty, I turn to you, seeking strength and solace. Heavenly Father, I ask that you look after my son, Sterling. He is hurt and needs your healing touch. Please guide the hands of the doctors and nurses. Though the road ahead would be long, he finally allowed himself to breathe again. Sterling was alive, and that was enough. From this point forward, Grant vowed to rebuild their relationship, no matter what it took. Ask, explain. The room was heavy with unspoken words, the kind that lingered like storm clouds, refusing to break. Sterling's voice had dropped, but it still carried the weight of years of pent-up emotion. You never understood, he said, his tone sharp yet tinged with sorrow. He stood taller now, as if trying to rise above something or someone. I'm doing what I need to do. If that means pretending you're not my father, so be it. I have to survive on my own terms. At the door, Grant looked at his son, desperation etched into every line of his face. Sterling, please, he pleaded, his voice trembling. think about what you're doing. You're drunk. You're in no condition to ride. Nothing matters more than your safety. Please. But Sterling's mind was made up. Please hurry. Without wasting a second, Grant dressed hastily. His movements mechanical as his mind raced to process the nightmare unfolding before him. On the drive to the hospital, his inner monologue spiraled into a torrent of guilt and despair. This is all my fault, he thought bitterly. We fought, and he left because of me. Please, God, don't take him too, not after losing Marlene. I promise to be better. Just give me another chance. When he arrived at General Hospital, a doctor greeted him with grave news. I'm Dr. Lennox. Your son suffered significant head trauma and broke both arms. We've taken him into surgery immediately. The next 24 hours will be critical for his recovery. Grant felt the floor crumble beneath him. Tears streamed down his face as he confessed, "It's my fault. We fought, and he left because of me." Dr. Lennox offered a reassuring nod, her expression steady. I understand this is incredibly difficult, but right now, we need to focus on Sterling's recovery. W. Finally, a doctor entered the waiting room. His demeanor was lighter, a small but hopeful sign that made Grant's heart leap. Mr. Grant, the doctor began, I have good news. Your son Sterling has shown significant improvement in the past few hours. He's emerged from the critical state, which is remarkable given the severity of his injuries. Relief washed over Grant like a tidal wave. His hands shook, and tears glistened in his eyes as gratitude overwhelmed him. The doctor continued, his tone cautious but encouraging. However, it's important to note that he still has a long road to recovery ahead. The head trauma was severe, and the fractures will require extensive rehabilitation. But he's stable, and that's a tremendous step forward. Grant nodded, absorbing the words. For the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself to breathe. Sterling was alive, and though the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, Grant vowed to stand by his side, this time as the father. In the sterile quiet of the hospital corridor, Grant listened intently as the doctor explained Sterling's condition. He'll require ongoing care, the physician said, his voice calm but firm. We will transfer him to a room where he will still be under observation. Our team will closely monitor his progress and ensure he receives all necessary treatments for a full recovery. Rehabilitation and therapy will begin as soon as his condition allows. This is crucial for restoring his functions and mobility. We'll keep you informed about every step. The doctor concluded with an encouraging nod, offering Grant a look meant to reassure. But Grant's heart was a battlefield of relief and concern. He absorbed each word, nodding slowly. Thank you, doctor, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything you're doing for my son. I'll be here for everything he needs. With that promise burning in his chest, Grant followed the doctor to Sterling's room. As he entered, his breath caught. But now I see. Now I understand. The true value of life lies in family, in love, in the unity we share. Mom was right, and I promise you, Dad, from now on, I will be the son you deserve, the son Mom always knew I could be. Grant sat motionless, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of emotions. Relief, love, and pride surged through him, washing away years of hurt and regret. Sterling's words were balm to his wounds, a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Tears streamed down both their faces, not just from sadness, but from hope, redemption, and a renewed promise of love and unity. It was a moment of rebirth for them both. On a quiet afternoon, days later, Grant sat beside Sterling's bed, carefully feeding him spoonfuls of soup. With his arms immobilized, Sterling couldn't feed himself, and the intimacy of the act brought back memories. "You know, son," Grant said with a tender smile, "this reminds me of the old days. You were just a little boy who loved playing soccer in the street. Sometime you were just a little boy who loved playing soccer in the street. Understand, but I cannot and will not pretend to be someone else." Beckett, after hearing Sterling's sincere words, approached Grant with a firm and respectful handshake. "Mr. Grant, I had suspected something like this was happening. Please know that this is in no way a problem for us. In fact, I now admire Sterling more for having the courage to tell the truth. And I must congratulate you on the intelligent and dedicated son you have raised," he said with a genuine smile. Grant, somewhat surprised and visibly moved, responded with a choked voice, "Thank you, Beckett. All I ever wanted was to give my best for my son, to teach him the right values," Beckett continued, now addressing Sterling. "About your skills and knowledge as a civil engineer. Sterling, they are truly impressive. I imagine much of it came from some inspiration. I must say that we are very interested in offering you a permanent position in our company, with real possibilities for growth." Sterling, hearing Beckett's words, felt a wave of gratitude and relief. "You to reap the rewards." Grant looked around, still trying to grasp the reality of the moment. "Sterling, my son, this is incredible, but you didn't have to do this for me," he said, tears in his eyes. "Dad, I had to do this," insisted Sterling. "You gave me life, education, and above all, showed me the true value of family. This is the least I can do to show my gratitude." As they walked around the property admiring every detail, Grant and Sterling remembered Marlene. "Your mother would be so proud to see where we've come," said Grant. "Aunt looking up at the sky, she always dreamed of a home like this for us." Sterling, holding his father's arm, agreed. "Mum is here with us in spirit. She's seeing all this and smiling. I promise to make her proud every day, just as I do with you, Dad." It was a new chapter in their lives, filled with hope, love, and the promise of an even brighter future. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing excellent, bringing excellent, bringing excellent, bringing excellent, bringing excellent, bringing excellent.